It's winter. And after spending the summer feeding in the Arctic, thousands of wading birds fly south to escape the freeze of the north and seek refuge on milder UK shores. Deveron Quay in Cornwall. A quiet creek on the River Fowl, sheltered by woodland on either side. When the tide goes out, the mudflats are exposed, and this marks the beginning of lunchtime for the weary travellers who have come to feed here. A curlew. Or make that two. Here they should find all the nutrition that they need to survive the winter. But they're not alone. They are joined by redshank, greenshank, and black-tailed godwit. Remarkably, although they feed together, they avoid competition because of their specialist feeding techniques. Looking down from above, finding sustenance might seem hopeless. But the curlew has a trick up its sleeve. A long, curved beak, sensitive to vibrations, and as it rotates it, it catches a worm. By creating these arcs in the mud, they cover a much wider area than any bird with a straight beak. But its shape does make it fragile, confining it to softer mud. Not so for the nimble greenshank. With short, stout beaks, these birds can take advantage of denser ground. Feeding on insects and worms just under the surface, they avoid interfering with the curlew's deeper explorations. In comes its cousin, the redshank. They are easily distinguished because of their bright red legs. The pigment comes from their diet, a stronger leg colour indicating greater feeding success, an attractive feature for potential mates. While the rising tide might be a challenge for the redshank, not so for the black-tailed godwit. Having a long bill like the curlew, with a streamlined design like the redshank, they use their beaks like a pair of chopsticks to pick off worms from deep inside the mud. Even within the species, females have noticeably longer beaks, which helps them to avoid competing with males for food. Sadly, half of Europe's black-tailed godwits have disappeared, as wetland is made into farmland. Only a handful of sites remain where they can live. Will Deveron be the haven that they are seeking? While some feed, others are preoccupied with feather maintenance. Rubbing their beaks against oil glands, they coat their plumage with a water repellent, which keeps them dry when probing around in the water. Without it, their feathers would soak, leaving them flightless and vulnerable to predators. While they're hard at work, the tide continues to rise. And to make matters worse, they've got company. With limited time to feed, they cannot afford this disturbance. In the panic of making its escape, a redshank wades out too deep. Its feathers must remain above the surface, or the water ceiling will be broken. With a few desperate lunges, it's finally free. The threat has passed. A near miss. The tide is in. The birds will have to sit out the next few hours until it recedes. Once it does, their feeding cycle will continue.